Alright, I got a new article I want to talk about from NPR. I've already done a lot on this topic, but it's my channel, so I am just going to do a lot more on this topic because I find it very interesting. So, as I said, it's from NPR, and it's New Yorkers look to suburbs and beyond, other city dwellers may be next. Because with the increasing prevalence of people working from home, there just isn't the same need to live in one location for a huge number of people. And so, if you can live anywhere now because you don't have to commute to any one particular location, why would you live in a place that's extremely expensive and has a lot of other quality of life problems like crime and crowding and vulnerability to pandemics because of crowding, amongst other things? So, as you can imagine, the recent events combined with the new prevalence of remote work is causing a lot of people to move out of cities and entire urban areas as well. I'm using urban areas in the sense of an entire metropolitan area, so in this case, suburbs count as urban. Trends often start in New York, the latest quitting the city and moving to the suburbs. Well, the suburbs in New York are still extremely expensive. So I don't see why you'd want to live in the New York suburbs when you could live in any city or metropolitan area you want. So you could live on the outskirts of a much more affordable metropolitan area like Nashville or Allentown or Raleigh or perhaps Stockton or Reading and get a lot more space for your money, even compared to the New York suburbs. You can get a lot more land area for the same amount of money. And not just property, but a much more spacious house, too, because the scarcity value of the land bids up the price of the same sized housing unit, so you'd get the same benefits of metropolitan living because you're in some sort of urban area, but it'd be completely affordable and you would not be having half your housing cost going to the rest of the land because of the scarcity value of the supply of housing because of certain factors that this video isn't about. So, if not quite an exodus, the pandemic has sent enough New Yorkers to the exits to shake up the area's housing market. Longtime real estate agent Susan Horowitz says she never seen anything like it. She describes the frantic, hyper-competitive bidding in the suburbs of Montclair, New Jersey as a blood sport. Again, the suburbs of New York are already outrageously expensive. So if you don't have to live in any one urban or metropolitan area because your job's fully remote, why would you live in any of the New York suburbs at all? That's my take on it. We're seeing 20 offers on houses. We're seeing things going 30% over the asking price. It's kind of insane. Yeah, I bet it's 30% on top of the $1 million a house in the inner suburbs of New York costs you. About 12 miles from New York City, Montclair is the kind of suburb that even appeals to demanding New Yorkers. It has yoga studios, restaurants, locals can walk to art galleries, even a film festival. It's always popular, but now on a completely different scale. Every last bit is COVID related, Horowitz says. New Yorkers aren't the only big city dwellers who have been decamping for suburbs, smaller cities, and rural areas. It began with the affordability crisis in cities such as San Francisco, New York, and Los Angeles, and has only picked up momentum during the pandemic, according to Glenn Kelman, CEO of the national online brokerage Redfin. The effects of COVID-19 have made many people wary of living in close quarters, he says. On top of that, the freedom to work from home means a huge percentage of people are now looking further afield. As I said, this is in large part being catalyzed by the prevalence of remote work now that the pandemic has sped up the shifts in workplace arrangements in the wake of everything that's happened. Ditching the city and buying a quiet place away from the crowds takes money. Only the relatively well-off can do it, but low interest rates could make homeownership affordable to more people for whom it has been out of reach. Or you could just move entirely out of the New York City region and get a completely affordable place in an entirely different, smaller urban area, or even the rural countryside if you're up for it. But low interest rates can make homeownership affordable to more people for whom it has been out of reach, if they maintain their income during the recession. Kelman says the preference for single-family homes has increased nationally. 36% of searches in Renfrew in May were exclusively for single-family homes, up from 28% a year earlier. By all accounts, the coronavirus has been a catalyst, prompting people who have been toying with moving to take the plunge finally, like Marina Katner and Stephen Kunaplu. They're expecting their first child in September. Katner works in ad sales. Kunaplu is in risk management. Until recently, they were living in a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan's Upper West Side with their dog. As the virus spiked in spring, stepping outside became a nerve-wracking experience. Coming in and out of the building at least 4 or 5 times a day to walk him, it was getting really stressful. Out the door to Montclair in late April, their offer for a colonial-style house with black shutters and a big front porch beat out 4 other bids. Cantor said they paid almost 20% above the asking price and thinks they would have been forced to pay even more if they had waited to buy a place. And so on June 1st, they moved in and officially became suburbanites. Everything changed the moment we could let the dog in the yard. Monica Schwarberg is a real estate agent who works with clients who want to live within 2.5 hours of New York City, mostly rural areas upstate. Things have definitely picked up and have gotten pretty wild, she says. In a busy April, when home shopping typically picks up, she and her colleagues would typically get about 75 inquiries. This April, it was more than 400. The option of moving to the countryside has become more viable with remote work taking hold, says Kelman, Redfin CEO. Yes, that's exactly what I've been talking about. All over the country, folks who had really thought 45 minutes or an hour was the limit to my commute are now willing to commute 2 or 3 hours because they're only planning to come into the office once a week, Kelman says. In May, Melissa Gulula and her spouse, Tiffany Wolf, moved from a rental apartment in Brooklyn to the bucolic hamlet of Narrowsburg along the Delaware River in upstate New York. You know what? I want to see where Narrowsburg is exactly. Oh, 80 miles away is well outside the New York area. At most, the New York area goes out, say, 40 miles? So back to the L article. One point of comparison between the city and the country. The town of Narrowsburg has a population of about 400, which is less than the building where I lived in Brooklyn, which had about 750 units, Gulula said. For 5 years, they had been coming to Narrowsburg House for weekends and holidays. It's about 2 hours from the city. Gulula, a wellness expert and media entrepreneur, says the decision to move permanently was partly dictated by finances, and a sky-high cost of living in New York. That's exactly what I've been saying too. There were other motivations as well. I needed a place that didn't look onto other buildings, that looked onto trees, Gulu says. For we, my well-being building in nature is really, really vital. Well, that seems to be it for the article. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with anyone you think might be interested.